Oh my god, why do I have a gun in my hand? I hope I didn't kill again.
With the upcoming release of Psychonauts 2, August 25th, 21st by the way, I enjoyed the game when I first played it back in 2016, but I didn't love it. I found a few things that I liked, but a lot of it was forgotten, and going back to it 5 years later, I never realized how much could change. This time around, I didn't just like the game, no, I loved it. There is so much charm, it's gross. Everything about this game is just so charismatic. But first, let's go over a bit of the history. Just let you know, this is going to be a bit longer than most of the history stuff I've done previously, so feel free to skip this bit. Or anytime I do it, it doesn't really matter. As Tim Schafer was working on Grim Fandango, his last game project at Lucasfilm, he was in secret working on an action-adventure PS2 game that was different from anything Lucasfilm had done prior. As Grim Fandango had been completed and after its initial success, most of the team at Lucasfilm Games left due to the company shifting away from the adventure game genre. They approached Tim and requested him to join them to create a new PS2 game with a new studio. Tim, being skeptical and unsure, stayed with the company for a while longer until he gave in and also left in January 2000. He then went ahead and founded Double Fine with a few of his colleagues. Taking his prior knowledge and prowess on the PS2 and the type of game he was secretly developing, he went ahead and proposed it to the team. When shown off with what he had been doing while at Lucasfilms, the team loved the idea and ran with it. This is where the original idea for Psychonauts came from, in the game Full Throttle. Tim envisioned a sequence where the main protagonist goes under a Pythonic-induced psychedelic experience, but this was cut due to not being family friendly. But not forgetting the idea, Tim took the same concept of entering one's mind and turned it into a full-blown idea whereby he would explore the concept. As he went to explain the idea to the team, one member mistook the quote and instead thought of entering another person's mind, where that became the basis for the game. But as the game was being made, it was originally being funded by Schafer himself, but many difficult issues occurred such as money management, looking for a publisher, a lack of experience on 3D game design, and a whole heap of other problems. But to wrap it up in a big bow, but not to leave you out, here's a quick summary of events that occurred when developing the game. When the team left Lucasfilms and when they created Double Fine, the Xbox had been released. And as the game was being developed, Tim saw a conference where the Xbox lead Ed Freeze was given an insight in how he felt games could be more than just games, they can be art. And that quote stuck with him, where he would want to soon get in contact with Freeze. Freeze then helped Double Fine by having them sign a contract, allowing them to hire more people, have better equipment, and have a bigger vision, as well as for the game to be exclusive for the Xbox console around that time. As time passed, the team were given unrealistic, unclear, and difficult to meet goals, which resulted in the team given the runaround with development. And in 2004, when Freeze left Microsoft, the publishing deal was cancelled by Microsoft. The reasoning being, Microsoft management considered Double Fine to be expensive and late, despite giving a release date of 2005 by Tim Schafer himself publicly. Following the contract being pulled, Schafer and Uz Murdoch, someone I couldn't find much info about, but she's the executive producer apparently. Anyways, they went ahead and started looking for a new publisher, while using internal funds and careful management to keep the project going. At some point, Will Wright helped them with a loan to stay afloat for several months. With that, they pressed on, found a new publisher by August 2004 with Majesco Entertainment to release the game on Windows as well as the Xbox. And in order to get this done, the team crunched like no one else, and by 2005 the game went gold. They managed to release it in April 19, 2005 for the Xbox and PC, but also June 21st, 2005 for the PS2 and on Steam in 2006. But the port was so bad no one liked it. But they couldn't do anything about it until 2012, when the rights were given back to Double Fine, where they finally patched it. After the release, the game was critically acclaimed with many outlets loving the game, but unfortunately the game was a bust and made almost no money. The title has shipped fewer than 100,000 copies in North America alone, and Majesco announces plans to withdraw from the big budget console game market ever since. But to the extent, in 2012, when Double Fine got the rights back, with the fixed Steam version, with the help of a Hummer bundle sale, the game sold more than ever with 400,000 copies, outselling every physical release they've done. And that's more or less the history of the game, but I know this has nothing to do with the game, but Double Fine's original office was so gross. I'm gonna rip this from Gamasutra. So here goes. In 2001, during the dot-com boom, the only San Francisco workplace they could afford was a warehouse on Clara Street, but the neighborhood was not the safest. Cars were broken into repeatedly. One night, a woman from the transient hotel next door jumped out of a 5th floor window and landed on their roof, breaking her leg and knocking a hole into their ceiling. Another day, there was a dead body in the doorway across the street, apparently the victim of an overdose. Inside, there was no heat. Space heaters will blow the circuit breakers, rats made themselves comfortable in their offices, and even worse, on rainy days, the sewers under the office would expel through the latrines onto the floors and through the halls. That sounds disgusting. But thankfully by 2003, they moved into a better place, so, yeah. With how many setbacks the team had, they still managed to pull off an excellent game, and I didn't even get into all the setbacks they had to go through. It is crazy when you actually read up the story of this game's development history. Hell, you don't even need to read it. Double Fine made a documentary called The Color of the Sky in Your World, parts 1 to 3, where they reflect on the development, and it's such a harrowing watch. You see a new team who is all excited, but that excitement turns into stress, and as I was watching it, I couldn't help but feel sympathetic and worried, even though I know the outcome. It's a very emotional watch, and I highly recommend you to watch all of it. It's also going to be put in the link below, as well as the documentary is quite short, so please do watch it. In any case, let's get on with it, huh? Let's go over what makes Psychonauts so good. But first, the story summary. You play as Raz, a young boy raised in the circus with his family, with powers that made him stand out above the rest. He was considered a freak, an unnatural being. One day, Raz learned about others with such powers that turned the average psychic into a psychonaut, people who could master and obtain new psychic powers within. Being obsessed with the Psychonauts, Raz learned about a camp that would turn one into a psychonaut. Wanting to go, but worried by his family refusing him, Raz sneaks off in mystery, where he would end up at Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp. Found having snuck in with no permission to tell his father, who will pick him up the next following day. Raz, with no time to waste, sets out becoming a psychonaut, but in doing so uncovers a sinister plot that looms over the entire camp. Can Raz stop it? And will he become a psychonaut before tomorrow? All these questions can be answered once you buy the game or you look it up yourself. With the story summary out of the way, I do hope that you, the viewer, plan on buying the game. It honestly is a lot of fun and a decent and a rather funny story. Also, the game is super cheap right now, so come on, man. Come on, you know you want to. And with the release of the second game coming up, you don't want to miss out. Anyways, if you don't want to and you just want to move on to the second one, that's fine, they got a recap. The gameplay for Psychonauts is simple and fun. The game really does have a lot to it when it comes to its gameplay overall, but its execution is very complex, and that's what sets Psychonauts so far apart from all the other third-person action adventure games around this time. In Psychonauts, you have quite a number of psychic powers you can obtain and use. Different powers can be obtained as you level up, so it's important to do the optional stuff the game offers. And as you continue to rank up, you also upgrade the powers you already have, making them more powerful. You can gain powers such as telekinesis, pyrokinesis, invisibility, and a lot of other powers. Each one can be used in various scenarios to complete challenges, obtain collectibles, and to defeat enemies. However, there are a few powers that almost feel pointless or feel like they're only there to be used in certain scenarios and never again, but that's very minor. What's really cool is taking a power you already have and going back to a previous level and seeing how different powers can alter the mission slightly. And when you use them outside of a mission, they're not optional to do so, but more often than not, there are plenty of ways to get around the game even if you don't have a certain skill yet. The game has a solution for every situation, and if you're ever in need of help, there's an item where Old Man Cruller will come out and give you a hint. And I like this a lot. The idea of a help section in a video game is something I find what more games should include, instead of finding the player to scramble around for themselves. And before you complain and say something dumb, like just look around some more or use your inventory, my answer to that is, if I'm going to look at Google or get help from a strategy guide, then what's the difference either way? One of the biggest benefits of a game having a help system is that it reduces spoilers and doesn't break immersion. In any case, with Psychonauts, you can collect arrowheads, which are in essence the currency of the world. Arrowheads can be used to purchase items at a cabin. I would normally glance over this section with what you can buy, but there's an issue with it I don't like. Not because the items are bad or anything, but instead all the items seem optional, and they are, until you're 2/3 in the way of the game, where it will gatekeep you if you don't buy the cobweb duster. The reason why I find this an issue is because you're going through the game, you have no reason to purchase anything from the store ever. Picking up arrowheads is also optional, so you could go through most of the game without ever buying anything or obtaining any optional arrowheads, until the game forces you to make a purchasing decision, as one of the worlds you enter will gatekeep you for no reason. The cobwebs themselves are also optional until this point, so I find it so weird that the game decides that they want you to make a purchasing decision even though it has no other purpose other than collecting cobweb dusters, which are basically a means to make cards. So I don't understand why the devs are forcing the player to buy it, as cobwebs themselves are also collectibles as you pass through in the previous levels. But if I'm gonna be honest, it really isn't that big of an issue. As soon as you make enough money, just buy the dowsing rod and it'll make money real fast. But I do find it weird that the devs would force this upon the player. It almost feels like padding for no reason. But other than that, the other items are optional and you don't need to buy anything else to complete the game. In addition to that, the game is a collectathon, so you are expected to complete certain objectives. Plus, due to this game being a platformer, you will be expected to reach for the stars when it comes to the completion of a mission or achieving a goal. But the difference with other platformers and how Psychonauts does it is, Psychonauts takes the powers you have received over the course of the game and creates a unique puzzle platformer where it challenges the player with quick thinking. You will jump, slide, flip side to side, climb, all the usual stuff. But with Psychonauts, the reason why the platforming feels so special is due to the powers and the music and location. But first, the gameplay for Psychonauts is getting a 7 out of 10. The reason why isn't because it's bad, but because as you progress through the game, you start to notice how unpolished some aspects are. But due to the enjoyment I had, I could forgive the issues. One of the biggest sections to show off how unpolished the platforming is comes from the final level, where the platforming is quite unforgiving, more forgiving than the previous versions of the game, but still quite a huge difficulty spike. While the whole game will be fun in its platforming, the ending section shows just how unpolished some bits are. While not the worst platforming, it definitely has a share of problems. When jumping on a rail, Raz would often not stick and I would need to redo the whole section. And during one of the sections at the last level, you need to jump on the rail. And as you jump on the rail, you need to gain a momentum of speed. But the issue is, if you gain too much speed, you become too fast. And when you become too fast, some of the jumping sections become way too hard to react to. And if you mess up, you're gonna have to do the whole thing again from the very beginning. A little meter would help, but not by much. If you could turn around and then jump, that would help way more. Regardless, what makes Psychonauts better than all the other platforms at the time is the music and locations. As Raz, you enter the minds of people who suffer from various mental issues such as nightmares, split personalities, depression, and many other forms of psychology. Psychonauts takes the basic concept of being bipolar and turns it into a full mental world, where it depicts a visual representation of what it might look like inside a person's head. And going through each mental world and seeing how different people have different issues is quite bizarre and creative with how the team had come up with such concepts to show off each person's mental state. The reason why it works so well in Psychonauts is how the game doesn't just do the basic concept of a mentality, they instead combine it with a person's personality, their hobbies, fears, dreams, and by doing so each world has its own unique experience. So even though you might meet someone with the same mental condition, their mind will depict a different visual representation, making each world feel fresh. And there are so many different minds that you enter where it makes the game so much fun. But to even mention the minds, I have to talk about the characters in Psychonauts. They're all unique with someone's personal charm. Everyone is so diverse in what defines them. And due to some of the powers you have, you can see how they view Raz or how they interact with him. Everyone in this game is such a bright spot, and that's due to the characters being so funny. The reason why Psychonauts is so beloved isn't just because of the gameplay or because of the worlds you visit. No, it's because of the writers Tim Schafer and Eric Wolpow, who did an amazing job when it came to the representation of each character. And while you might not gain a lot from them just through dialogue, as you enter a person's mind, you get a sense of how a person is. There's a lot of visual storytelling, And one of my favorite levels to depict this is someone like Sasha 9. A person like him has a very calm and collected speech pattern, and when using words, he often speaks slow and thinks carefully on what he has to say. And in his mind, it shows he's a very tight-knit person and he keeps things to himself and away from others. He tries to hide and suppress his inner thoughts. His world is a black and white cube and it's rather boring. But that's what makes it so unique, because that's him in a nutshell. He's a very private person. Another form of what makes the mind so great is the small details that make for the personalities. Like the music. In every world, the music is very different, and that alone represents the character. But also, the items in that world also represent that person too. Like, there is a collectible in each world called emotional baggage. If you listen very carefully, the crying sounds are the minds of the people you visit. Or how in each world there are vaults whereby you can see the person's backstory, and that then emphasizes the world that you're currently visiting. Another world that I personally enjoy, and one of my favorite and possibly one of the most famous levels, is the Milkman level. As you meet Boyd, his personality is broken and you have no idea what's going on with him. But once you enter his mind, you understand everything, or almost everything. His world is so topsy-turvy, it's very intricate. For a good reason, it shows how scrambled Boyd's mind is, and the mind gives him so much more character than the person. Even outside of the mines you visit are quite fun. When you get to Camp Oblongata, it has a very nostalgic feeling. Everything about it is so relaxing, and being a person who's never done camping before, I felt right at home. I felt like I was back at school, which is really funny because I hated school. But the people in the camp have such a wide variety of personalities that it has this feeling of just chilling out with some friends while all the other kids are doing their own stuff. The teacher's constantly telling you to get to your class, while some are bunking and others are rushing not to be late. It really has a nostalgic feeling for me. The music for Camp Oblongata has a very lazy feeling, and I often listen to it when I'm going to work because it's such a mood. Others have tried to replicate what Psychonauts has done before and after its initial release, but what Psychonauts does to differentiate itself instead is something different, and I really appreciate it. As well as the characters have such distinctive features about them, but not going into the realm of disbelief. Everyone from a physical appearance is very memorable, and the voice acting everyone nails. It's funny because when doing research, the campers were going to be real kids, but because of a lack of voice experience, they didn't do that, so they abandoned the idea. So that's a really good choice. And as for story, I know I didn't talk about it that much. If I have to give it a rating, it's going to be a 7 out of 10 also. Not because the story is bad, but because I feel like there's so much more you could have told with Camp Oblongata and the campers themselves. The game goes from a very slice of life aspect to dark and isolation very fast, and I feel like I would like to be around the campers a lot more. I wish there was a lot more you could see and hear from them. I wish there was more activities you could do within the camp, but unfortunately there really isn't. In any case, I think 7 out of 10 is very good for the game. The game is also very short when compared to other games of today, so do take that into consideration. And with the way the first game ends, I really hope that the second game just picks up right after. But I heard there's a PS4 VR game, which is a bridge between 1 and 2, but I find that really silly because Psychonauts 1 came out back in 2005, and for people who've been waiting for a sequel, you can't even play that version of the game because it's locked behind VR, and I'm not going to spend £200 or more just for a VR setup to play the game. I hope one day they release a version that isn't a bridge like that, and it's just a normal game. Otherwise, I'll probably just watch a cutscene on what it is. So, you know, oops. I don't really need them on anyway. Something I want to say is, this game has so much passion in it. Once you start learning about the history, I know that can be said with a lot of games, but when I was learning about the history of this game and then looking back at the gameplay footage and seeing what has occurred and watching my sister now play the game as I wanted to experience it, it really is quite beautiful. It shows how much passion and effort and just overall love went into the game. And I hope all of that continues in Psychonauts 2. And seeing, from the little I've seen, it does seem that way. And even if that game doesn't live up to my expectations, I still think it's gonna have that same love, passion you can feel through the first game. Even if it might not be as good as the first game, as long as that passion is there, that's all that really matters. I want to say it's also a big lesson in that as long as you have a form of love and passion and just a sense of creativity, people will see that, people will feel that. So if you ever feel like someone's telling you your ideas are crap and no one cares about it, or there's only a few number of people that will watch it because of a certain reason, who cares? As long as you are the person who made it and you are happy with the content that you have made, then who actually cares? There will always be an audience out there for you. There will always be someone out there that will want you to strive and continue. Because as long as you put that passion in there, in your videos or my videos, but as long as you put that passion in that project, that's all that really matters, because people will see that. Alright, do take care and see ya. Also, there might be a story segment of this game. I'm not really too sure because I want to tell you the story of this game and the next game. But seeing as I have almost no time, probably not. But if there is, surprise, you know? Alright, do take care and see ya, everyone. Like, subscribe, and you know, all that jazz. Yay!
Here's the marketing document that Microsoft made for Psychonauts. Based on the 12 focus groups conducted worldwide, the primary weakness of the game are the storyline, which is considered unoriginal, childish, and overly complex. Tongue-in-cheek nature of the game is a weakness. Most simply did not get the joke. Others disliked the satirical humor. In addition, many feel the humor would get old, limiting replayability. Humor should be incorporated into the game as a secondary or supporting characteristic. Humor should be simplified and made immediately apparent. To help international appeal, limit game components that feel especially Americanized, i.e. summer camp.